Hi guys, welcome back to the Kit Breakdown. Today we've got a super interesting conversation for you all today. Today we are going to talk about innovation, and is there a lack of it? Or is it absolutely flying in the industry of football kits? So we're going to ask Rob yet again to talk us through innovation in design. So Rob, what are you seeing out there? Is the world still innovating or what?
Not for me, Clive. I think that, it's my favourite unit on the Spark Design Academy course is the one where we talk into innovation. It's a big passion of mine, has been a cornerstone of my career. And it feels like now, particularly with the commercialisation of authentic jerseys, has basically been a higher tier replica, that we are missing out on innovation in terms of things that are really driving the athletic experience forward. So, we talk about that in our video around authentic versus replica, but I think it comes to life when you look at what's supposed to be authentic shirts, that we've got in front of us. And there's so little to talk about, or so little that's new. So the Nike knits that they've been using now for a few seasons doesn't feel like it's really moving on. If anything, it feels like it's getting heavier, which, could just be perception. But here we've got the Atletico Madrid authentic version of the jersey. So as with all the other kits provided to us by Subside Sports, it's a really nice jersey, the way it's put together. The materials are nice, but as a pro athlete, for me, it's so heavy. If I think of hits that I designed in the past where we were literally putting them on digital scales, we were putting them in low velocity wind tunnels.
And if I can just interject there, if I may, you talk about that. I think you're referring to the time that when you were a Puma, there was a whole storyline, a whole narrative about getting players to the ball faster.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That was the brief, was get players to the ball faster. So it was, even with the controversial Cameroon kits that we worked on at the time, that was about eradicating shirt pulling. Because if you think back to the early 2000s, most brands and clubs, the football shirts were enormous. Yeah. So shirt pulling was it was like the VAR of the early noughties. Yeah. In terms of like the hot topic that was changing.
Well, that was certainly what Kappa did in 2002 exactly. With their combat shirt, so wasn't it?
Yeah, Kappa went with the combat shirt, and they've stuck with that, but with good reason. That it's something that has become a signature of the brand, and they've evolved the materials and the way of doing it over a period of time.
Because that was one heavy shirt when that got wet. Oh my goodness!
Yeah. I mean, even before it got wet, it was just so full of lycra. Yeah. But so with the Cameroon sleeveless, then the all-in-one, that was all geared around reducing shirt pulling. Mm-hmm. And then as we moved towards 2006, then the big focus was, why was shirt pulling a problem? And it was because it was stopping players from getting to the ball faster. Yeah. So we took a really holistic view on it, which is really was driven a lot by what Nike had done with Total 90 in 2004, of rather than looking at the clothing and the footwear and the accessories as being completely separate entities. Obviously, T90, as we reference in our video, speaking to you and Peter Hudson and Clancy Boyer about that, it took everything as a single concept. And then Puma's take on that was to go even a step further and have a single point of view around function and make that the concept. So, obviously you can't get the ball to the ball faster, but the ball was made from materials that would make it travel quicker. It was tested and was the roundest ball ever at that point. The boots were super, super lightweight. Yeah. The stud configuration on them was geared around being able to change direction quickly. And then the shirt itself, super lightweight, even when wet, aerodynamic, almost impossible to shirt pull because it came through the opposition player's hands. So there was so much that went into that. And now it feels more like aesthetic innovation rather than proper scientific sporting innovation.
Okay. Well, guys, if you want to hear more about innovation and the difference of fabrics, you've just heard what Rob's been talking about, Lycra. Did you know that by putting more Lycra into a football shirt, it's actually going to make it heavier? Well, these are all subjects that we talk about in Spark Design Academy. If you head over to our courses, we'll teach you all about the different fabrics that we use in football kit designs. We'll talk about why we use those different fabrics as well, and the importance that it has on the players that we actually design the kits for. Yes, of course, we're designing for fans, but if you're talking about innovation, first and foremost, it's about the athlete. So if you want to get your career a little bit further along the path, sign up to Spark Design Academy. Do it right now. Like, subscribe, and sign up to us. Anyway, Rob, what were you saying?
So I've talked about the weight of the materials. That was a huge factor for us in creating that kit. With this Nike jersey in particular, and obviously it's the one that they're putting across all of their professional teams, even the side panels are quite heavy. We've got a rib fabric, which is a particular type of knit structure.
Again, with Lycra in, right?
Yeah, there's a knitted material here, which has got some tiny perforations, some little holes in it. But as you'll be able to see on your side as well, they've put quite a thick plastisol print over it, which has actually covered up some of the holes. Yeah. So in one of the most notorious areas for being able to move air away from the body, hot air, and cool the body down, some of those ventilation points have been blocked up. You know, there's a lot on here. We've talked about Nike's collar and cuffs in the nicest possible sense previously, and here again they're back to what's more of a typical tubular knit. So it's
just explain what a tubular knit is.
Basically, they're having to double the rib back on itself, so you get two layers of knit. So it would be knitted. They can be flat as well, or knitted as a tube, but it's basically then, because both ends of it are cut, then you have to fold it on itself to get a clean finish at the bottom. So basically,
there's a lot of bulk again in an area which really you don't want on an athlete.
Whereas what we've seen, particularly on Adidas kits over the last few seasons, is that they've used a flat knit, so it's completely finished at both edges. Yeah. So you've basically got half the weight.
And there's a lot of detail and a lot of, if you take some time and have a look, particularly at some of the Arsenal kits over the last couple of seasons, if you look at some of the rib structures that they've got on there, not only is it just a single, but they've actually put mesh within those neckline structures. So a lot of attention to detail is going into that. And I think that'll be an episode that I cover where we talk about the attention to detail that goes into every single component. But Rob, I just want to move the conversation on a little bit, because you've got two other kits in front of you from two other suppliers. One, we've got Adidas in the Real Madrid kit, which I must say is an absolute stonker. I absolutely love the look of this kit. And we've got the Puma kit that's from Malaysia, which is interesting, Rob, because I believe the fabric that's being used on that harks back to the time that you were at Puma.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if I start with the Real Madrid one, as you say rightly, it's a great looking kit. It really is.
It really is. That is an absolute stunner. Well done, Adidas. That's a great looking kit.
Yes, heavily influenced by Teamgeist, which will be the 20th anniversary of that at the back end of the 2026 season. So I can understand them wanting to go back to that. It makes me feel a little bit old that kits that I was designing competitors for are being anniversaried. But there's a lot of great stuff about this, and I think you're going to be covering that in a video about details. But from an innovation perspective, there's not a lot for me to talk about. We're seeing this guy again in the back of the neck, which has got the raised elements in it, which supposedly stop the shirt from sticking to the back of the neck.
Well, if I just pull that out for 1 second. So we talk a lot about the frequency of football kits. I mean, I've banged on about this for a number of seasons now, and the fact that I do believe we're producing way too many kits. Do you think there's an element where they're continuing a lot of the innovation, or dare I say lack of innovation? Yeah. And I don't want to do them a disservice, because there is some innovation on this table, but the innovation is carrying over. But as a fan, wanting something to cherish and maybe have for a few seasons and build those memories behind these kits, they're in and out in a season. So I guess my next question to you would be, do you think that's just like a sign of the times where everything just seems to be on fast forward? And it's not just the kit industry, it's everything. We consume things on such a fast pace now, whether you're flicking through your TikTok, your Instagram, whatever that might be. Do you think there's an influence there where things just seem to be so quickly now, and that fashion is just, it's almost even the luxury end of the market is in,
Yeah, I think so. I think there is part of the challenge though with football shirts is when it comes to fashion, people have got the option to buy or not. Whereas if you're a football fan or a football supporting family, and particularly the kids want new kits all the time, then it's kind of not really an option to have the new shirt, really. I mean, obviously it is, but...
Well, you have that option if you want. I'm sure a lot of our fans and, people watching this will say, well, you've got the choice to buy it or not.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But it's hard when you've got
the reality is it's not the same. Yeah, it's not the same as, nobody's clamouring after the new Dolce and Gabbana, whatever print they're putting on a T-shirt this season.
Because he loves a bit of Dolce and Gabbana. I think it's just because he looks like them.
Love it. I look like both of them. And so, yeah, I think there's just more to it when it comes to football kits. So I think what I like with this is that it's quite a significant move on. So as much as the technology we've seen before over the last couple of seasons, the visual is very different. So at least there's a reason for that to be happening and to be released. With this, it's not that dissimilar than what we've seen on Atletico Madrid and the other Nike teams before.
And what about the Puma one then? What are you thinking about that?
Puma one.
Because that's certainly not got a 3-second sale as far as I'm concerned.
No, I mean,
visually it's...
Yeah, I don't know whether the triangles on it have some sort of relevance to Malaysia. I'd be delighted if it does. In the comments, please let us know. What's interesting is that we thought we'd seen the end of Ultra Weave a couple of years ago. We even did a video about it where I think we were talking about Italy and Dortmund as being the last incarnation of Ultra Weave.
It was the Italian kit that they did the full Ultra Weave, but it was the full 9 yards. It was bonded. It had the mesh neckline. It was absolutely superb.
Yeah, it was. And so they've brought the fabric back. And indeed some of the details that speak a little bit more back to 2006, where we've got the cats on the shoulders. It is that super lightweight woven material, which, has a little bit of stretch in it. It's interesting that the front panel on this feels quite different to the back. I would think that's because of the printing technique, where it's been done with a huge roller along the fabric and uses heat, and it feels like it's crushed it and removed some of the stretch, which is a real shame. But I think something that's perhaps missed a trick with Anniversary in that as a technology, if I look back at 2006, the one thing I would definitely do differently is in really hot conditions when the players were sweating, the fabric couldn't keep up with the rate of drying that was required, and it stuck to the player's body.
To be fair, there's not that many fabrics that can actually do that
but
in reality.
Think by adding a texture or, even just not using a woven helps, and I think the difference between a knit and a woven is obviously the structure of the two. A woven is the type of material that you might find on a shower curtain. And when you're wet and in the shower and there's a shower curtain, when that sticks to you, it stays stuck.
Yeah.
Whereas, from a knit perspective, because it's got more structure to it and because it's got more stretch to it, then it tends to not cling as much. And I feel like the technology should move on. It was great, but it's a 20-year-old technology now.
Here's a controversial call out to Puma here, and I'd like to hear from you, the guys at Puma. Again, it feels like I'm always having a go at you when really, if you cut us in half, I'd probably bleed a bit of Puma because of my love for the brand. But I can't help but thinking, and knowing the industry that we know, and we know that we get a lot of redundant fabrics, it's not a top tier team. It's ended up with a fabric that is purely used on top tier teams. Would you think that that's fabric that's been left over? It's been put onto a team that's of a lesser standing, if you like. I know, obviously, if you're a fan of the club or the nation, you're not going to see it that way. But it feels like to me it's a little bit of a mismatch.
It's interesting that it's the same colour as Dortmund, so may not have needed to have been dyed up.
That's what I'm thinking. It just feels like I'm questioning why it's there. It's such a great fabric, and it's on a lesser team. So, Inspector Private Eye here is probably questioning why.
I think even so, as a technology, if we think about innovation, visually this is exciting, but it's anniversary in something from 20 years ago, and the technology is from a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah,
this is pretty much the same technology from 20 years ago, but it's stitched together rather than bonded. There isn't, other than the actual structure pattern within the fabric, it's basically the same. This is something that we've seen different iterations of over the last few years from Nike. What we've got here from Hummel with Real Betis is another one that's just a simple change of structure within the knit of the fabric.
Yeah, and it's the same for the AC Milan one as well.
There isn't that newness. I think there have been periods within the sport, and indeed within all sports, where there seems to be a real surge of technology and ideas and innovation that's geared around sporting excellence. And that has, or certainly was always the way that we were able to explain, well, that's why the pro jersey, authentic jersey costs so much more, because it does cost so much more.
Yeah.
Whereas now it is starting to feel like it's just 2 tiers of replica, rather than sitting here and being able to fully justify why this is for an athlete, rather than just it's a more expensive replica jersey.
Yeah. So guys, you've just heard Rob talk about innovation. Do you believe you could be the next big designer to be working for some of the big brands, knocking out innovation that we can sit here and talk about all day, every day? Have you got what it takes? You guys as concept designers as well, everything that we seem to be seeing is mainly about the graphic application and the visual look of things. Are you really thinking this through? Are you really going into the depths of how do I make that athlete get to the ball faster, as Rob was doing back in the early 2000s? If you want to learn from 2 industry pros, get yourself over Spark Design Academy and we'll teach you how to design exactly like that. We'll take you through all the different steps that you've got to go through to design innovational product and create visuals that will excite consumers all over the world. We've done it and you can too. Sign up to Spark Design Academy right now. Don't delay. Get into it. Come on, guys. You can do it. We want to see the next big designer come through Spark Design Academy. And who knows, you might be designing for Nike, Adidas, Puma, and all the big boys out there. Don't delay. Sign up now.